I'm 88 years old, and my name is Thomas Hale. I don't hear my children's voices much anymore. It took me most of my life to understand why. When the phone stopped ringing, I told myself they were busy. That's what I said to the neighbors. That's what I said to myself while I washed the same 2 dishes each night and turned off the kitchen light. But the truth is quieter than that. At 88, you wake up knowing there aren't many mornings left. You don't reach for big realizations. You reach for your glasses. You reach for the edge of the bed to steady yourself. And sometimes you reach for memories you avoided for decades. I'm not telling you this to make myself feel better. There isn't much use in that now. I'm telling you because I can finally see the shape of my life without trying to defend it. I used to think I was a good father. I worked hard. I paid the bills on time. I kept the house in decent shape. My wife, Margaret, never had to worry about groceries. The kids had clean clothes and shoes that fit. In my 20s, I believed that was what fatherhood meant. I met Margaret when I was 24. She had a laugh that made you look up from whatever you were doing. We married quickly. We didn't have much money, but we had a small apartment and a second-hand sofa that sagged in the middle. When our first son, Daniel, was born, I remember standing beside the hospital bed, feeling something heavy settle into my chest. Responsibility. That's the word I used. Not tenderness, not wonder. Responsibility. By 30, I was working 6 days a week at the factory. I told myself it was temporary, just until we got ahead, just until we bought a better house, just until the promotions came through. There was always a just until. Margaret would ask if I could come to Daniel's school play. I'd look at my schedule and shake my head. They'll have more, I'd say. He won't remember this one. I believed that. When our daughter Elise was born 3 years later, I felt the same weight. More diapers, more expenses, more hours. I was tired all the time. But I wore that tiredness like proof of love. I didn't shout much. I wasn't cruel. I simply wasn't there. I would come home after dark. The kids would already be in their pajamas. Margaret would tell me about their day while I loosened my tie. Elise asked why you don't eat dinner with us, she said once. I remember feeling irritated, not at her, at the question. Tell her I'm working, I said. Tell her that's how we keep this house. Margaret looked at me for a long moment. She didn't argue. She just nodded. That was how most of our disagreements went. Quiet, brief, unfinished. On Sundays, I tried to make up for it. I'd take the kids to the park, push them on the swings, buy them ice cream. But even then, I was thinking about Monday, thinking about the overtime I could sign up for, thinking about the supervisor position that might open. I told myself I was building something for them. I didn't notice I was building a distance, too. Daniel stopped asking me to come to things. He'd tell his mother instead. Elise grew shy around me. When I entered a room, she'd straighten up like I was a teacher. I thought it meant they respected me. Now I think it meant they didn't know me. In my 40s, I finally got that promotion, supervisor. A small office with a desk and a window that looked out over the loading dock. I remember feeling proud. I called Margaret from the office phone. "We're finally getting somewhere," I told her. She was quiet for a second. "That's good, Tom," she said. I didn't hear the tiredness in her voice then. The years moved quickly after that. Daniel went to college. Elise followed. The house grew quieter. Margaret tried to fill it with small things, gardening, church groups, baking more than the two of us could eat. One evening she said, "Do you ever wish we had slowed down?" I laughed a little. "Slowed down for what?" I asked. "This is what we worked for." She didn't answer. When Daniel graduated, I gave a short speech at the party. I talked about hard work, about discipline, about making something of yourself. Daniel thanked me. He hugged his mother longer. After he got his first job in another state, he called once a week, sometimes twice. Elise called too. She told Margaret about her apartment, her friends, the man she was dating. She didn't tell me much. If I picked up the phone, she'd be polite, careful, as if she were choosing words. I thought that was just her personality. Margaret fell ill when I was 67. It was nothing dramatic at first. Fatigue, shortness of breath. I assumed it was stress. I assumed we'd handle it like we handled everything else. But illness doesn't respond to schedules. I sat beside her hospital bed one night and realized I didn't know what to say without giving advice. She looked smaller there. "Tom," she said softly, "did we do it right?" I knew what she meant. The kids, the years. "Of course we did," I answered. She closed her eyes. I don't know if she believed me. After she passed, the house felt different. Not just quiet, hollow. Daniel and Elise came for the funeral. They handled arrangements calmly, efficiently. I watched them move through the house like visitors. After they left, the calls became less frequent. At first, I blamed distance, time zones, busy jobs. Then I blamed their generation, always on the move. I never blamed myself. When Daniel missed my 75th birthday, I felt something sharp in my chest. Not medical, personal. I called him the next day. "You forgot your old man," I said, trying to sound light. He paused. "I'm sorry, Dad. It's been hectic." I wanted to say more, to tell him it mattered. Instead, I said, "I understand." That was always my line. I understand, even when I didn't. Elise visited one summer with her 2 children, my grandchildren. They were polite, sweet, but they clung to her the way my own children used to cling to Margaret. I tried to tell them stories about my job, about the old days. They listened for a minute, then ran off. Later that evening, I overheard Elise in the kitchen. "He means well," she was saying quietly. "He just doesn't know how to talk about anything else." I stood in the hallway, feeling like a guest in my own house. The turning point didn't come with a dramatic fight. There was no shouting match, no final words. It came one winter when I fell on the ice outside the mailbox. I lay there longer than I'd like to admit. I remember looking up at the gray sky and thinking how quiet it was. A neighbor found me and called an ambulance. At the hospital, the nurse asked who she should contact. I gave Daniel's number, then Elise's. They both came, but not together, and not for long. Daniel stood by the bed, hands in his coat pockets. "You have to be more careful," he said. I nodded. Elise adjusted my blanket. She kissed my forehead. "Maybe it's time to consider assisted living," she said gently. There was no anger in her voice, just distance. After they left, I stared at the ceiling and replayed something Margaret had once said. Children don't just need food and school. They need you. I had given them everything except myself. I thought presents could be postponed, that love could be stored like money in a bank and withdrawn later. But children don't remember the bills you paid. They remember the chair you didn't sit in, the games you didn't watch, the conversations you hurried through. At 88, I finally understand why my children stopped calling. It wasn't sudden, it was earned. Not through cruelty, not through violence, through absence, through 1,000 small moments where I chose duty over connection. I told myself I was sacrificing for them, but I never asked what they wanted. Maybe they would have preferred a smaller house. Maybe they would have preferred me at the dinner table. There are things that can't be fixed now. I can't go back to that school auditorium and sit in the folding chair. I can't kneel beside Elise's bed when she was afraid of the dark. I can't redo the evenings when Margaret tried to talk and I reached for the newspaper instead. Time doesn't offer revisions. Daniel calls on holidays now. The conversations are polite. "How are you feeling, Dad?" "I'm fine." We both know that's not the full answer. Elise sends photos of her children. They're taller each year. I look at their faces and wonder what they'll remember about me. A voice on the phone, a man in a chair. I don't blame them anymore. That took me a long time. I used to think they were ungrateful, that they didn't see how hard I worked. Now I see that love isn't measured in hours worked. It's measured in hours shared. If you're younger than I am, you probably think you have time. I thought that too. I thought I'd slow down after the next promotion, after the mortgage was paid, after retirement. But when retirement came, the habits were already set. I didn't know how to sit and simply be with them, so they learned to live without me. If this sounds familiar, I'm not asking you to quit your job or change your life overnight. I'm just telling you what I learned too late. Children grow in the spaces you leave empty, and sometimes those spaces stay empty. I sit in my living room most evenings now. The same chair, the same lamp. The phone rests on the small table beside me. Sometimes it rings, sometimes it doesn't. When it does, I answer quickly, as if I'm still that young man trying to prove he's reliable. When it doesn't, I don't curse anyone. I just sit with the quiet. I loved my children. I still do. I just didn't show it in the way they needed. At 88, that is the clearest truth I have. There isn't much time left for me to practice it, but there is enough time to say it. If this meant something to you, hold it gently. Think about the chair you're not sitting in, the call you're postponing. I won't tell you what to do. I can only tell you what happened to me. The house is quiet now, and I finally understand why.